Welcome back everyone to Master Game Design, Unreal Engine 5 Stylized Environment and Third-Person Blueprint course. In last lesson, we left ourselves off by creating an ocean and getting ourselves basic island set up. And we're still not quite done in regards to that, so we're going to continue on in regards to just setting up the island overall. So for us to do that, we're simply going to start by grabbing the island. So as talked previously, by grabbing the icon that's in the middle of the island, so either this icon over here or grabbing an island icon over here for the ocean, the main island itself, we're going to be able to open ourselves up with splines. And the spline control is rather simple, to be honest. We just simply click on the island itself, then we're able to make selection based on it. If we were to just have the icon itself selected, we're able to drag it around as I talked previously. But if we were to select one of those points over here on the side, so for example, this one over here, we'd be able to just select it and then have control over the individual points. So by using this, we'll be able to drag it around. Now, I personally recommend you only using this type of a gizmo in regards to not using the Z value. So just real quick, I'm going to show you what I mean. Basically, we'll only want to be able to use out of this type of arrow, so go in either this direction or this direction. The blue arrow over here is a Z value, and we're not going to be basically using that in regards to the spline control overall. And as you can see, also we have another type of an icon inside of this gizmo, which is going to be a square. So this one over here. This will basically allow you to make use out of both of these arrows simultaneously, and you'll be able to control the direction in regards to X and Y directions, but not Z. So that's what I mainly will be using throughout controlling the splines, as we'll be able to just simply drag the splines around like so, and simply have a nicer direction on how the island will interact with one another, with the overall splines that is. And yeah, by just dragging it around, we can see how it changes. If we want to make a bit of a more complex shape, we can also do so. We simply need to right click on the spline itself on the line, and we're just going to select add spline point here. By doing so, we're able to get more detail out of our shape, out of our entire spline. And as you can see, like so, just like that, we're able to create a more intricate and more nicer shape. The one more thing that I'd like to mention is also going to be the arrows on either side. So either this arrow over here or this arrow over here. By simply clicking on either one of them, what you can do is simply you can have a different interpolation between the points overall. And again, this will help you to get more of an interesting type of a shape for the lines. For the sake of this teaching, I'm going to keep it to the basics. So I'm just going to keep this as is. I think the default islands are going to be looking quite all right for our setup. I'm just going to maybe go check the main island over here and see how this looks like. And we might need to make sure that this main section is a bit more flat in regards to the overall section. So what I'm going to do is I'm just simply going to select this point over here, going to, after selecting this point, select its interpolation, and then I'm just going to drag it outwards like so, get something a bit more flat looking, just so we could have a nice working area for this harbor. So just like that, I think that's going to be quite all right. There you go. So we got a bit more of a flat area. All right, so the next thing that we should be talking about is going to be the ocean itself. If you look at the ocean, by default, this is the type of depth that we're going to get. We have certain controls over the depth of the ocean. So the way we can control this is going to be by selecting the ocean itself. Make sure that the water body ocean is selected. So I'm just going to click on the water itself and it's going to select it like so. And then on the right hand side within the details tab, we're going to find ourselves the settings for it. And there is a lot of different settings. We're not going to go too much into it because they're really technical overall. But the main ones that we need to know is basically going to be, for starters, going to be depth. Depth, if we were to just simply use the search bar over here, we should be able to find it as our first type of a setup. There you go. That's the one we're looking for. Is going to be within curve settings, channel depth. And this will basically allow us to control the overall depth of the ocean. So what I mean by that is if we were to set this instead of 2000, if we were to set it to 10, you can see that we actually get like very shallow waters, and it might look quite nice if we were to be setting ourselves up with a nice swamp terrain or something of the sort. But since we're making a type of a harbor, we just need to make sure we have ourselves at just enough depth for like the boats and whatnot, but not too deep, because otherwise the islands will be looking a little off in regards to that. So I'm going to set this to a value of 800, and that's just going to give us this kind of a shallow depth look, which is going to be great for us. And in regards to the overall terrain setup of the islands, we need to also learn just real quick, although this setup is quite nice. We can basically control the overall settings of the island itself, the way it's shaped out, the slope of it. I'm just going to real quick click on this X over here just to take off the search bar. Otherwise, the search will just stay on whenever we go to another selection, and that can be quite troublesome. So if we were to just simply select on the island itself, on the curvature of it, we should be able to, if I were to find it through here, going to be within curvature settings. So this one over here, if we were to select it, we basically have controls over the curvature. And yeah, we can select one of the ones preset. So over here, and actually, yeah, we're just going to be able to keep the default one as is. But as you can see for the island, actually, I will show you what it does real quick. So I'm just going to go on the water, and you can see the slope over here. And if I were to change this to maybe like a drop up, you can see that it actually creates us some interesting results, although this one is not meant to be used for the islands. But all in all, just by changing it around, you can get much better results if you want to have a nicer slope. You can also change the edge offset and its depth in regards to where it ends basically, and also the width, the most important one in regards to how big the overall setup is. We'll just quickly click Ctrl Z to undo it and just keep it to the default, since that was looking pretty good for me. This, on the other hand, this island, as you can see, it gives us a lot of artifacts. The main reason is because the slope itself is not set up properly. So let's go ahead and go on to its curvature. So I'm just going to select it like so. And then I'm just going to find again the terrain curvature. So that's going to be this one over here. And yeah, as you can see, if we were to change this to maybe a linear ramp down, that's not going to give us the right results. Let me just play around with this, and I think I saw, there you go, float curve island. Let's go ahead and make use out of that, and that's already going to give us a much nicer transition overall for the island. So that's how it pretty much works in regards to that. It's a very nice non-destructive kind of way of working. And yeah, the overall setting is already set pretty nicely. One more thing that I will mention though is how we can change the color of the water. So by default, this water is actually just the right color for our stylized scene. But just in case you want to play around with it, I will show you how to do that. And it's actually quite simple to do. All you gotta do is just select the water itself, go all the way down until we find ourselves the water material. And this is basically the ocean material that's being used. And if you have a lake type of a setup, or you'd have a bit of a different material, but all in all, they would work similar way. So by clicking on this button over here for the water material, you'd be able to find yourself the water material instance. And that's going to open you up with an engine folder itself. So as you can see over here, we are within the engine folder. So this means that by default, it's not the project folder, it's the Unreal Engine itself folder. So if we were to change this material, it would actually change throughout all of the default type of parameters. So what I recommend you doing, instead of just changing this material, I recommend you to just select this, click, or actually, instead of copying this, I'm going to show you a bit of an easier way. So by just simply holding left mouse button and dragging it to the content like so, you can actually drag it onto the content, click copy here, and then if you go back onto the content folder like so, you can see that you copied ocean material, and then afterwards you basically need to drag this into the water material like so. And I will actually we'll keep this in this folder just for the sake of it. Then afterwards, we just need to double click on it to open it up. And what you'll notice is that, well, it doesn't have anything on here, but because we simply drag this outwards onto the water ocean and now it's being used just like that. As you can see, it has, if you hover over, you can see the name game/water material ocean. Anyways, going back to this material, the main settings that you need to know is going to be all the way down. I'm just going to find it real quick for you. So there you go. Global vector parameters. Those are the ones that are going to be needed. And the ones that you need to just play around with are going to be the absorption and scattering. I recommend you, instead of just clicking on the values itself, just open these up, click on these icons over here, and then you can just play around with a red, green, blue, and alpha. These are what the letters stand for. And for example, the absorption will allow you to absorb the color itself. Now it's absorbing mainly the blue, but if we were to just absorb red, for example, you can see that it starts turning the entire color into red. So that's pretty much it. And there is a water shader outside of this, which you'd have to also change it up in order to make it more fitting for the ocean. But yeah, again, I'm not going to go too much into detail for this. Just showing you an example on how to set up a different color for the water. And again, as I said, because it's a tropical type of an ocean, this color is actually just right for setup. So yeah, in the next lesson, we're going to move on and set ourselves up with a bit of a starter point for our scene. We're going to continue though in the next lesson. So thank you so much for watching, and I'll be seeing you in a bit.